What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina Part 3. Let me know in the comments down below. Are you a fan of this franchise? Are you a newcomer? If you are, you should probably start with Part 1. And did you enjoy this season or this part of television, which is what we're calling it now? Okay, so Sabrina starts out in this first episode recruiting Roz, Harvey, and Theo for an emotional mission. Prudence and Ambrose are traveling to New Orleans, and Miss Wardwell returns to Baxter High. And as always, this is a spoiler-free review for the most part. Now, at the end of this video, after I give you guys my score, I'm going to hit on the final episode for just a minute, and then if you want my full spoiler thoughts, you can go check out the Movie House podcast feed, formerly known as the Schmoes Know podcast feed. We're going to be talking for about an hour on this season of Sabrina, most likely on Monday. So check that out. But as for this video, we pick up the lost emotional pieces of the end of last season with our characters and a lot of things to like in this season. A lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to praise. There were also some moments, and if you guys are longtime fans of this franchise, and if you're on this video, why wouldn't you be? You understand just as well as I do that not everything has been perfect thus far, but there are a lot of great pieces in this part as well. The biggest thing for me, though, is the fact that we're setting up for something even more entertaining. Maybe not on the scale of this season, because my goodness, guys, it goes all out and crazy. And in this final episode, which we'll dive into at the end of this video, there's a lot. There's a lot to soak in with our characters, with the storylines, with the fact that Sabrina is doing some things that we've possibly never seen before. We've hinted at some of these things, but we actually get to see it play out on screen. And where we leave off at the end of the season, not to jump too far ahead, even though I am, man, it is setting up for something really, really exciting in Season 4. We have to hit on where we're at right now, and let's start with Kieran and Shipka as Sabrina, who is, I believe, better than ever. She is perfect for this character, and she once again establishes that, not just with her relationships portrayed on screen. Now, one thing I was struggling with at the beginning of the season is the fact that we didn't get a lot between her and her aunts in the first couple of episodes, and I'm like, I'm missing them. I mean, we're still getting their storyline happening over here, but the interaction between the two storylines, not all there. And there were multiple elements within the first few episodes that I felt that I missed from the previous two seasons, and the fact that we get so many new characters once we hit episodes 4 and 5, and then we get really our major storyline that begins about halfway through this season. The first few episodes of this season are kind of picking up the lost pieces of the last season, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because we wanted to see where that went. And in this first episode, and this isn't a spoiler because it was in the trailer, but we get to go to hell. Isn't that fun? Look, at this point, you know what the show is. You're either into it or not. We hit on hell and demons and witches and witchcraft and all of these things. It's handled in such a way that comes off as not necessarily a spoof, but just the tone. We understand that these guys aren't serious. I know this is something that's been brought up in my first video, my second video, and now this season. Everyone tends to bring it up. And at this point, if you've made it this far, you're probably not bothered by it, but yeah, we go even deeper and darker. But we still keep the same silliness and heart, which I believe is the most important part of this entire franchise thus far, that we had in the prior two seasons. And even though it gets darker from an imagery perspective, I don't think it's as scary. They've kind of dropped off what they did in the horror genre within the first two seasons, which isn't a bad thing. And like I said, there's still some things in here. A moment where something happens to one of our aunts and they use prosthetics to make them look little crazy. Not trying to spoil anything, but oh man, these were very scary moments, both imagery-wise and what was about to happen to this character within this storyline. And you know the stakes are super high, and maybe that's a detriment to this season, is the stakes are so high in these final few episodes, and things actually happen. And a lot of it sticks, but what doesn't stick and what gets corrected along the way, it feels like it lowers the stakes for the rest of the series, even though this season they were still extremely high. And a few moments to nitpick in the first few episodes when the band consisting of all of her friends are performing. It's really obvious lip syncing, and then there are a couple of moments, and we see it on the poster. I mean, it's plastered this season. She's a cheerleader by day, but she's a witch by night. Well, some moments with cheerleaders where they're performing, and I'm just sitting back thinking, where's the music coming from for this? And they're lip syncing, and okay, it's fine. We get that with a show like this. People are always comparing this to Riverdale. I do believe this tone is darker. It is more suited for Netflix as opposed to a Riverdale that is suited way more for the CW. We get those elements that carry over, but they're not as present and prominent in this season, especially towards the end. We definitely get it at the beginning. We're exploring these relationships. The highlight, I believe, within the first few episodes is Ambrose and Prudence. I mean, they're literally on their own adventure. And of course, that storyline is going to tie into our grand storyline throughout the final few episodes, but I really enjoyed it. It's almost like they're on this quest and they're slowly becoming more attracted to each other, and they're really starting to fall for each other, and I love the way that storyline played out. One of my favorites, mostly because Ambrose is such a good character. I love Chance. He's such a good actor. I want to see him in more things, but he owns, and I can say that about everyone in this season. Each actor owns their specific character. I can't say there are grand scale arcs throughout this season because we're way more focused on the plot as opposed to giving us individual character moments, which is okay. You know, we've had part 1 and part 2 to explore these characters, learn about them, establish who they are. In this season, we don't get as much of that. Sabrina, obviously, but pretty much everyone else, they are who they are, and we understand that, and that's okay. You know, I like the fact that we're focusing more on story or stories, and that could be another problem with this season for a lot of people, is there are multiple stories and storylines. We finish off what was set up in part 2, and then we go into this almost Midsommar cult-esque storyline where this group of people is clashing with this group of people, both crazy groups of people, but we're rooting for, obviously, our characters that we have been invested in for quite some time, and maybe there's a mole here or there going back and forth between two organizations, and that was an unexpected, not even a twist, that was just an unexpected plot thread that we followed all throughout the final few episodes. And there was one episode in particular, it actually spanned a couple, but really one that we focused on, where Sabrina is obviously trying to prove herself when it comes to what her role is within hell, right? Well, in this episode, she basically travels around with her friends and collects souls for hell. Every now and then she feels like she has to do the right thing because that's the moral conflict that keeps us going in this series, right? That was some of the most entertaining stuff in general. I'm talking all 3 seasons that I've seen from Sabrina. That was so much fun. I wish we would have gotten more of that. It was almost an abrupt end to that particular plot thread, but I could have used more, man. I was having such a good time, and some of the most entertaining stuff from this season for sure. In terms of the visuals, I like the way that they made hell scary without actually going overboard. You know what I mean? And that could be budget restrictions. There were times when I was looking at this show, especially this season for some reason, I'm just like, was their budget smaller this season? Now you look at some of these practical effects and you're sitting thinking, no, there's no way. But certain elements such as the fire at times and portions of where they were in hell, I'm like, maybe the budget wasn't as big as it was in prior seasons, but it still showcased well. You love the imagery. You're in it for all of the aspects of Sabrina that you love. Obviously, we're rooting for our aunties. They play a major role in this season. Their storylines in particular are a tad bit unexpected. Where it goes within the final few episodes, you're sitting back going, I cannot believe they are making these decisions right now. Aunt Hilda, in particular, she is one of my personal favorites, but they're both phenomenal actresses, and we love them. Like I said, Harvey and Ambrose, they're great this season. While someone like a Harvey was great, I could have used maybe a bit more from him, and really the friend group in general. They help her on her missions, but they're almost forgotten about in the final few episodes until they start hitting on things, hinting towards next season. I'll say this about Caliban, the guy who is kind of competing with Sabrina for that spot in hell. I thought he was a great character in theory, more so than execution, because he wasn't built up in a way to where I understood his motivations completely. I needed more from him. And also maybe a bit more from Lilith as well. She was great, but she popped up less than I feel like she should have for the storylines that were happening, especially midway through the season. Now, the Nick and Sabrina drama, it almost felt shoehorned in at the beginning, like, okay, we have to keep this going. It was here in this season. We got to keep it going in the next season. But then at a point, they just kind of forget about it. They didn't put a lot of effort into it to flesh out those two characters together. Same goes with a few of the romance storylines. personally, this isn't going to be the case for everyone, personally, my least favorite aspect of the show because it never really feels like they know exactly what they're doing. I'm in it more for the adventure, the storytelling, the family relationship more so than the romances. And even though I have a few more nitpicks than maybe I wanted for this season, I still thoroughly enjoyed myself. Listen, if you're on board with these characters, if you are on board with this show, you're probably going to like this season. Maybe not as a whole, but at least elements. And I really, really enjoyed my time. An easy binge, and it feels like it keeps getting shorter. We go from like 10 to 9 to 8 episodes. This season was only 8. Maybe we could have even shortened it more, a tad bit of filler in there. And if you guys enjoy this video, if you like what we're doing every single weekend covering Netflix, be sure to smash that thumbs up button. Going 75% for Sabrina Part 3. Like I said, I enjoyed myself, but I do want to hit on this final episode because like I said, there's a lot. So spoiler warning, 3, 2, 1. Multiple Sabrinas. We are dealing with the deaths of basically everyone, right? Not Ambrose, but pretty much everyone else. Both the aunts, the friends, the family, everybody is dying back and forth left and right, not necessarily just in this episode, but episodes prior. And I'm sitting back going, what? How do we fix this? And we know on Hilda, they started to bring her back to life, and then Zelda has that vision, so we know that maybe something could come of that, and you establish these rules of, I don't know if they can come back to life because Sabrina knows that this is what happens, and we talked about the paradox is, okay, if you mess this thing up, then something else is going to come from it. And then at the end of the episode, and I'll dive way deeper in our podcast that we're doing, but at the end of the episode, you see Sabrina meet up with Sabrina, which had already happened, but this is a different Sabrina, and both of those Sabrinas decide to do what they both wanted to do, but one more so wanted to be the Queen of Hell, and one more so wanted to go back to her family. And you have the discussion with Ambrose at the end saying, what did you do? Like, why? Why is this a thing now? When I told you specifically, don't do stuff like this. And Sabrina just shakes it off and walks away. And then obviously we're going to cut back to Father Blackwood and set up his role in the next season. But when I said there are things set up for season 4 that interest me heavily, I meant it, because I'm interested to see how it goes. They try their best to explain the time travel, but at a point, and I love when movies and shows do this, Sabrina just looks at the camera basically and says, no, we're not going to worry about that, because we're not going to try to explain it. We're dealing with magic and mysticism here, so what's the point of explaining it to the audience? And that will catch many off guard and kind of make them upset, but for me, I'm just like, yeah, they accept the fact that they can't explain it, and that's fine. So a lot happened in that final episode. I will dive deeper, but just know you are getting pretty much everything that you expect. You're not going to be let down if you want a lot of action and adventure. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. A lot of things to talk about with Sabrina. I need your comments down below. Stay tuned because there's more to come. I'll see you soon.